27. My family started pushing me to get married. I abruptly broke up with my boyfriend of 3 years and started going on blind dates back in my hometown. A friend asked me, "You were so into Vincent. Can you really let go of him?" I sneered. "I'm not stupid. He's fine for dating. But to actually marry him? I'd be miserable my whole life." Suddenly, a familiar and chilling voice chimed in. "Oh, so that's why you dumped me?" Chapter 1. I was dragging my luggage home when I bumped into a girl walking out of my apartment. She wore a loose black sweater that showed off her collarbones. And nothing but that, no pants style, with YSL stiletto heels. I recognized her as the bassist from Vincent's band. I think her name was Laura, a girl in her early 20s. Very pretty. Instinctively, I stayed hidden behind the hallway door. A moment later, Vincent walked out in jeans, leaning lazily against the wall as he lit a cigarette. He was shirtless, droplets of water still dripping down his toned shark muscles. After a second, he casually tossed a Chanel handbag to her. "Take it." Lara's eyes lit up, and she threw herself onto Vincent, squealing, "Aw, I've wanted this bag for so long. Where did you get it?" "I picked it up in Hong Kong last time. I love it so much." "Thank you, babe." Lara tried to linger, but Vincent seemed a bit impatient, his brow slightly furrowed. "All right, get going." The girl climbed down from him, half pouting, half playfully whining. "You're so heartless. Just called me babe, and now you're kicking me out." But she wasn't actually mad. She blew Vincent a kiss as she slung the bag over her shoulder. "I'm off. See you tomorrow." After she left, I stepped out from behind the door. Vincent didn't expect me to suddenly be home. He froze for a moment, but his expression quickly returned to normal. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming back?" I looked at him for a moment. "It was late. I didn't want to disturb you." The red marks on Vincent's neck were still fresh, but he showed no guilt, wrapping his arm around me and pulling me into the house. "Starving. Make me something to eat." He settled on the couch and turned on the TV, acting like nothing had happened. Seeing me standing still, he frowned. "What's wrong?" He then seemed to realize something, a lazy smile spreading across his face. "Missed me?" He got up, wrapping his arms around me from behind, his breath hot and teasing against my neck. As his hand slowly slipped under my shirt, Vincent had been playing guitar for years. His calloused fingertips scraped against my skin, rough, a mix of pain and itchiness. I closed my eyes and pulled away, exhausted. I did like Vincent's body back then. I pursued him mainly because of his looks, but maybe it was because of the long flight I'd just finished. Or maybe because of the woman earlier. I just felt tired now, with no mood for this. Vincent rarely faced rejection from me, and after a moment of stunned silence, his face darkened slightly. "What's wrong?" I looked down and saw something on the carpet, a torn-up pair of black stockings. Vincent noticed them too and clicked his tongue, his face looking a bit ugly. The tense silence filled the living room. He pulled out a cigarette and lit it, the sound of the menthol capsule popping crisp. Her lease ended. She had nowhere to stay, so I let her crash for a night. We didn't do anything. I looked at Vincent, our gazes meeting through a haze of smoke, obscuring our expressions, but we both knew how flimsy that excuse was. This wasn't Vincent's first time cheating. He was probably born a playboy. He was like this the first time I saw him. At that time, my best friend wanted to take me to see a famous rock band perform, saying the lead singer was incredibly handsome, and tickets were hard to get. I had no interest in rock and was pretty indifferent, until Vincent went on stage. He kept his head down, strumming his guitar, his black hair lazily falling over his forehead, revealing glimpses of his pale eyelids. He was dressed the simplest among them, just a black t-shirt and jeans. Yet he instantly became the center of attention. His face was his most expensive accessory. He looked up, the dim lights reflecting in his amber eyes. A hint of a smile there. It was my first time watching a band, and my best friend and all the girls in the audience were screaming like crazy, their screams almost shattering the ceiling. Sweeping his gaze across the crowd, our eyes met for a split second before he looked away. The songs that night were great, but I heard none of them. At that moment, Everything else went silent. I could only hear my thundering heartbeat. After the set, countless girls rushed backstage to get his contact. I was one of them. Single for 23 years. That was probably the bravest thing I'd ever done. Vincent didn't turn anyone down, letting each girl scan his QR code, including me. A year later, all the other girls chasing him had given up, but I stuck around. Maybe it was pity, or maybe he was touched. I don't know. Vincent allowed our relationship to happen, and I became his girlfriend until now. But I know, in all these years, Vincent has never really loved me. Or maybe he did. Loved me for being understanding, generous, never making a fuss. He's cheated so many times, but as long as he had a somewhat believable excuse, I'd forgive him. He said so many times that I wasn't his type, that he was with me just because I treated him well. He even joked that he'd dump me once he found his true love. The only reason we've lasted this long is because I kept compromising. You promised me you wouldn't cheat again. My voice was low. Eyes on the torn Balenciaga stockings. Vincent's eyes flashed with mockery, making no effort to console me. Did you really believe it? He smirked, leaning in to blow a minty smoke cloud in my face. His gaze wicked. Can't take it? If you can't take it, then let's break up. He said that to me countless times before. Every time, it ended with me begging him to stay. Over time, he learned how to push my buttons, knowing that whenever he said it, I'd lose my resolve. I turned my head away. I'm tired. I'm going to rest. Vincent grabbed my wrist. He had high cheekbones, and his face always carried an imposing pressure when emotionless. Roxana, that's enough. I shook his hand off and went to the bedroom. Shortly after, the door slammed loudly. Vincent left. He was angry. I knew that. After all, I'd always been the one begging, pleading. I'd never given him the cold shoulder like now. I turned over and picked up my phone. In the family group chat, my mom had tagged me. Moms never rushed you before, but you're 27 now. It's about time you started thinking about marriage. My coworker's son is pretty decent, and I found him pleasing to the eye. Why not come home and meet him during the holidays? I opened the message from my boss. Roxana, the new branch is really short on people right now. With your abilities, staying as a deputy manager is holding you back. Would you be interested in heading over to the branch as a manager? It'll be tough starting out, but it's up to you. My mom wanted me home for a blind date. The company had just opened a branch in my hometown. Everything seemed to fall into place. I had no reason to stay here. I sighed. Truth be told, I did like Vincent. He was handsome, had a great body, and we clicked in bed. Most importantly, he was enough of a jerk. Being with him was easy. I didn't need to think about taking responsibility for him or our future. Back when I started working, exhausted and dizzy, I wanted someone to release the pressure on, but I was just average looking, and a sucker for looks, searched for ages without finding anyone I liked. Until I met Vincent. He spent his best years with me, using his body to relieve a lot of my stress while I poured myself into my career. And though his relationships with women were all over the place, at least he was careful. I'd heard that he required every girl to show a health certificate dated within the last 3 days, and I always took precautions, so I wasn't afraid of getting sick. Finding another man like him who fit my tastes would be tough, but that's life. Dating is one thing, marriage and settling down is another. I did like Vincent, but I also knew he wasn't husband material. Now, it was time for me to make a decision. Chapter 2. Vincent didn't come home that night. For the next few days, he was nowhere to be found. He ignored all my messages and calls. When I tried again, all I got was a red exclamation mark. He had blocked me, cold shouldering me like he always did. There were times like this before. Vincent was the master of silent treatment, and every time, I'd have to grovel for a long while before he'd finally forgive me. But this time, I was busy with my job handover. I didn't have time to coddle him. That night, as I was buying my ticket home, my phone suddenly rang. It was one of Vincent's friends. There was noise on the other end, people laughing, music blaring, men and women talking. It was so loud that it felt deafening through the phone. Roxana, Vincent's drunk. Come pick him up. Vincent loved bars. His family had money, and the band was just a hobby for him, not something he needed to make a living off. I once asked him why he didn't take over the family business. He scoffed, saying that his dad's kids from all the mistresses were already fighting like dogs for that bit of inheritance. He wasn't interested in fighting for the scraps. Anyway, his grandfather's estate and his mother's assets would be left to him, so he wasn't short on money. He just wanted to do whatever he enjoyed in this lifetime. Vincent had zero ambition, and in that way, we had nothing in common. Whenever I landed a project or got promoted, he'd always act uninterested. He once scoffed at me, asking what was the point of killing myself for a monthly salary that wouldn't even cover his bar tab for a night. I knew, from the core, we were not the same kind of people, other than the physical aspect. We had no common ground. I didn't care about his soul. I only liked his body. He ignored my feelings because he was used to me being understanding. That worked for me too. It meant when we broke up, neither of us would be hurt. I sighed and said okay, then put down the phone and looked out the window. The city at night seemed even more dazzling than during the day. Lights from countless homes, cars streaming by, and all sorts of neon, together. They masked the glow of every star in the sky. I glanced at my ticket, 8 a.m. The day after tomorrow. I sighed again. Truthfully, I didn't want to break up just yet. Vincent and I were really compatible in bed, and with all the pressure from changing jobs, I kind of wanted one last night together before breaking up. I clicked my tongue, feeling it was a bit of a waste. But oh well, since the opportunity had come, there was nothing to be done. When I arrived at the bar, Vincent was surrounded by a group of girls. They came in all shapes and sizes, but they were all undeniably pretty, their heavy makeup unable to hide the youth in their faces, all clearly very young. It wasn't surprising that the girls liked him. Vincent was rich, generous, handsome. His playboy ways almost seemed to add to his charm. I touched my own face, remembering what Vincent had once said dismissively. "You're 27 already. Go get a facial. Fix yourself up. Would you?" No wonder he found me lacking. He was always surrounded by girls in their early 20s. I said nothing, standing outside the crowd, catching Vincent's eye, but he looked away quickly, as if he hadn't seen me. Laura, her face flushed, was clinging to him, her voice sticky. "Vincent, one more drink." Vincent smiled. Under the lights, his eyes curved beautifully, but without a hint of warmth. "What's the point of drinking like this? Why don't you feed me?" "How do I do that?" Vincent said nothing, just looked down at her. After a second, Laura seemed to understand, a spark of excitement in her eyes as she downed her caramel-colored whiskey. Then, Vincent suddenly grabbed her chin and kissed her hard. His kiss had no tenderness, more like he was venting his emotions. Laura took it, her eyes welling up from lack of air. Whiskey spilled from the corners of their mouths, glittering under the lights, until they finally pulled apart, a long string of saliva connecting them. The atmosphere erupted around them, everyone cheering and hollering. I knew he was doing it on purpose. He was punishing me for giving him attitude that day, and for not making it up to him afterward. It wasn't until I walked up to Vincent that the crowd noticed me, and they gradually quieted down. Vincent looked up, expression indifferent. "What are you here for?" I looked at his face, momentarily remembering all the times we'd whispered sweet nothings. Did it hurt? Maybe a little, but how much? Really? It wasn't unbearable, after all. I'd always known this was the kind of person Vincent was. A playboy, endlessly seeking excitement, unable to say no, self-centered, always the spoiled golden child, never considering anyone else's feelings. I spoke with a trembling voice. "Vincent, you've gone too far." Vincent looked at me, though he was sitting and I was standing. It felt like he was looking down on me. His face was still indifferent, with a sneering smile. "Too far? You can break up. No one's stopping you." I said nothing, just stared at him. I'd lost count of how many times he'd threatened me with a breakup. 50 times? 100? One of his friends seemed to think he'd gone too far. After all, everyone knew how I'd treated Vincent over the years. And he whispered to him, "Vincent, don't be mad at her. Look, she's about to cry." In fact, I was crying. If you're going to put on a show, you do it right. When that tear hit the ground, I saw Vincent's face change, his fingers holding the cigarette twitched. But he still said nothing, just looked at me coldly. The next second, I spoke softly. All right, Vincent, let's break up then. Vincent's face twisted for a moment. For a second, I thought he was going to explode, but instead, he laughed, though it looked like he was gritting his teeth. Wow, Roxana, all right, just know I never take back my exes, so don't come crawling back like a dog. Okay, I nodded, wiping the tears from my eyes. Then I turned and left, without looking back at him. Vincent didn't come home that night. I deleted every way of contacting him and everything about him. Packed my bags. The next morning, I took the earliest flight back to my hometown. As the plane flew above the clouds, I pulled out my SIM card and threw it into the trash bag. Chapter 3. I didn't contact Vincent again. Posted a few late-night emo captions on my WeChat moments. Built up a heartbroken image, then promptly left him behind. Life back home was routine. I quickly adapted to the new company's business and also met the guy my parents set up for me. Across from me, a 28-year-old programmer who was already balding was still rambling on. I think women should prioritize family after marriage. I mean, after we get married, you shouldn't work anymore. Don't be too ambitious. Take care of the home. Behind every successful man, there's a woman. He kept droning on while I smiled at my coffee cup, trying my best not to dump it on this pig-headed guy. Finally, when he finished, he eyed me and said, "Did you hear what I said just now? Do you have anything to add?" I kept my smile. "No, but Mr. Wong, I don't think we're a good match. Maybe we shouldn't see each other again." Then I turned away, leaving as he muttered, "Women over 25 are worthless. What's there to be picky about?" Old woman. I'd been back for days, and my mom had introduced me to quite a few men, some of whom actually had decent qualities. But after being with someone like Vincent, I couldn't settle for these average Joes. This feeling lasted until work one day. During a meeting, everyone had arrived early, sitting silently around the conference table, the atmosphere tense. I quietly asked the deputy manager beside me, "What's going on? Did something happen to the company?" The deputy manager leaned in and whispered, "The old chairman's son is parachuting in. Apparently, he's taking over the branch to get some practice before running the whole group. This young Mr. Koo, I hear he's from Harvard, worked at a big company for a few years, then went into finance and made billions overnight. The old chairman had to beg him to come back. A real tough character, be careful when talking to him." After a while, a young man in a black suit walked in, with a black wool coat draped over his shoulders. As he stepped into the office, someone respectfully took his coat, and the sound of his shoes on the floor ceased. I looked up. In that instant, everyone's gaze was drawn to him. The first thing that hit me was his aura. It was the aura of someone used to being in charge. He wasn't exuding arrogance. Yet everyone, including me, instinctively felt like looking down, avoiding eye contact. The second thing I noticed was his sharp, bright eyes. Black hair slicked back with gel, revealing his prominent brow bones. I'd heard the chairman's wife was French, and the elegance of blonde hair and blue eyes merged perfectly with the subtlety of Eastern aesthetics in him, a Western bone structure with Eastern features. This man was very handsome, on par with Vincent, though his aura was so overpowering that it overshadowed his looks at first glance. "Sorry, my flight was delayed. I'm late." He first acknowledged his fault, then sat at the head of the table, starting directly. "My name is Joaquin. I'll be the company's general manager from now on. I've already reviewed the company's information and financial reports. Now, starting with the deputy manager, I want each of you to give me a summary of the past year's work and ongoing projects." One by one, the heads nervously began reporting, and young Mr. Koo, as rumored, was indeed sharp, pointing out every attempt at evasion. I don't like vague answers, nor do I like being deceived. I'd like to communicate well with everyone, but if that fails, I'll consider other approaches. He neither yelled nor cursed, yet a cold sweat formed on everyone's backs. Even when it was my turn, my palms were slightly sweaty. Luckily, I had prepared well. and my results from the past year were solid. So I spoke more and more confidently. My education and career were my pride, the most important things in my life. I never allowed myself to compromise on them. Joaquin didn't interrupt me, and I saw a hint of appreciation in his eyes. After a moment, I stopped, signaling that I was done. He nodded. Roxana, right? Not bad. Everyone should follow the standard when reporting from now on. Since Joaquin arrived, everyone at work had gotten busier. He cut down a lot of redundant tasks and bad assets and brought in several high-quality projects. We were working longer hours, but our paychecks increased accordingly. My colleagues, especially the younger female ones, were very interested in Joaquin. Two new girls seemed to be on something, actually trying the whole cold CEO falls for a pure girl plot from a novel. One argued with him during a meeting. The other spilled coffee on his $30,000 shirt and then tried to wipe it off with her hand. The first was fired the next day. The second was fired on the spot. The female colleagues all fell in line, though they still gossiped about him in the break room. I heard he's never had a girlfriend. Could he still be a virgin? No way. You've watched too many dramas. A guy like him has women lining up for miles. He couldn't still be a virgin. I'd spend my entire year-end bonus for one night with him. He's perfect. Did you see when he wore those dress pants the other day? My God, too much to handle. Listening to them, I suddenly got interested. Without Vincent, Joaquin seemed like an even better option. I wanted to give it a shot. Chapter 4. I started showing up in front of Joaquin regularly. He always arrived half an hour early to work, and 3 times a week, I'd take the same elevator as him, usually just the two of us. I didn't say much, just a simple greeting, pressing the elevator button, then standing quietly, and I'd consistently go grab a cup of coffee around noon. He'd usually come to get his at that time too, but I always made sure not to run into him, leaving right before he arrived, but making sure he could see me. Sometimes, I'd work late, and he'd pass by my desk when leaving. In short, I made sure to be in his sight as much as possible without ever speaking to him unnecessarily. Finally, on the 17th time he saw me working late, he paused, then walked over. I've noticed you working late often lately. Is there an issue? I looked up, pretending to be surprised, hesitated, then handed him the documents I was working on. I recently took over a project, but there are some assets in this company that I'm not sure about regarding risks. So I've been studying them more. Joaquin naturally sat at the desk next to mine. Let me see. He had a light woody scent, and when mixed with my rose perfume, it created a slightly intoxicating aroma. I think the project is viable. Look at their 2023 report. Their financials are solid. And, he spoke smoothly, and I nodded intently, occasionally asking highly technical questions, and showing an enlightened look after each answer. So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Koo. I hadn't thought of it that way before. Your skills are already good. You just lack experience. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Finish up and head home early. He actually cracked a joke. Don't let people think I'm a slave driver, making employees work overtime every day. I nodded, packed up the materials, and left with him. When we stepped outside, the wind carried the raindrops onto me, and I hesitated. Stepping back, Joaquin was about to leave, but seeing me unmoving, he turned and asked, "What's wrong?" I waved. "Nothing, Mr. Koo. You go ahead. I just remembered something I need to do." He didn't ask further, just nodded and left. 5 minutes later, his car came out of the underground parking, and I was still at the company entrance. Joaquin rolled down the window. "Did you not drive today?" I blushed. "No, and it's tough getting a ride in this rain." "It's okay, Mr. Koo. I'll just wait a bit longer." He spoke. "Get in. I'll take you." On the way, I talked to Joaquin quite a bit. He was a bit surprised to discover we had similar interests. Even the indie film I liked, The Holy Mountain, happened to be his favorite too. From his initially aloof demeanor, Joaquin gradually opened up, until we reached my place, actually. He drove right past it. I pressed my lips together, about to remind him, but he realized before I could. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the GPS. After the car stopped, I thanked him again for giving me a ride home. Joaquin nodded, his lips parting slightly as if he wanted to say something, then stopping himself. What is it, Mr. Koo? I looked at him. What perfume are you wearing? It smells nice. He seemed to regret asking right after, but saying anything more would just make it awkward. So he looked down instead. I found it amusing. Penhaligon's fox. See you tomorrow, Mr. Koo. Chapter 5. I stood behind the curtain, watching Joaquin leave, and picked up a notebook from a nearby table. To create this opportunity, I hadn't driven to work in a long time. Thankfully, today's weather forecast was accurate enough to give me the rain I needed. I opened the notebook. It was filled with notes on Joaquin's preferences. Information about him was scarce. It took me quite some effort to find the social media account he used back in school, where I meticulously recorded every detail, just to learn something about what he liked. Even The Holy Mountain was a movie I had only watched last night. It couldn't be helped. For an average woman like me, trying to win over a man like this required extra effort. I smirked, sitting down on the bed, just about to rest, when my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but the voice was one I knew all too well. Vincent's tone was cold and indifferent. You left a lot of your stuff at home. Come and get it, or I'll throw it all out. When I left, I had indeed left behind some things, but they were just items I didn't find useful and didn't want to carry. I thought Vincent's personality would have led him to throw everything away, but I didn't expect him to actually call and let me know. Just throw it out. I don't need any of it, I replied, flipping through my Joaquin strategy notebook, my tone indifferent. On the other end, Vincent was clearly unhappy. After a long silence, he hung up abruptly. That was just like him, moody, always needing someone to comfort him. But now, I no longer had any obligation to do that. I blocked the number and put the whole thing out of my mind. Having already interacted with Joaquin yesterday, I couldn't use the same approach today. I decided to leave work early for once and went to a bar with a friend to have a few drinks. After a few rounds, we were both a bit tipsy. My friend squinted at me and asked, "You used to like Vincent so much. Now that you suddenly broke up, are you really over him?" Back when I was with Vincent, my friends always thought I was pathetic for simping over him, but I didn't think much of it. Since I wanted Vincent's body, I had to give something in return. Besides, whether I was simping or not was up to me. How was that pathetic? I put down my glass. He was only ever good for dating. I'm not stupid. It was fine to fool around when I was young, but to marry him? I'd be miserable for life. My friend gave me a thumbs up. You're right. Vincent might have been great, but you were the one enjoying the best of him. You're actually the one in control. She suddenly stopped talking, her face frozen in horror as she looked behind me. Am I drunk? Or am I hallucinating? A faint, cold laugh came from behind me, instantly sobering me up. Oh, so that's why you dumped me? I stiffly turned around, and there was Vincent, leaning against the wall in a silky white shirt, glaring coldly at me. My friend abandoned me without hesitation. Vincent dragged me to an empty hallway. Looking down at me, I seriously thought he was about to kill me. What are you doing here? I decided to go on the offensive. You didn't come here just to find me, did you? Vincent lazily curled his lips. Roxana, if you don't have a mirror, surely you've got a reflection somewhere, right? I'm here with the band for a performance, but if it wasn't for running into you, I wouldn't have known you've been playing me all these years. I was just joking with my friend. You know, you hurt me too much, and I'm a person who still cares about his pride. I turned away from Vincent, but he grabbed my chin and forced me to face him. His teeth clenched on one side as he spoke. Roxana, have you always thought I was a fool? Yes, I answered silently in my heart, pulling my aching chin away from his hand and keeping my composure as I said, Vincent, no matter what, I gave my all to you for these past years. Search your conscience. How did I treat you? I've never wronged you. In fact, it's you who's been wronging me all along. Even if I plague you, it wasn't for nothing. Didn't my youth count for anything? Now that we're at this point, let's end things on good terms. At least, I paused, unable to say the words in love. At least it wasn't for nothing. Vincent stared at me for a long time, and just when I thought he was about to get angry again, he suddenly laughed. Under the lights, his face was as beautiful as ever, but I felt nothing. No matter how good-looking a person is, after 1,000 days and nights, you get tired of looking. Roxana, you think too highly of yourself. Vincent smirked. Of course we should part on good terms. Did you think I'd cling to you? But remember, it wasn't you who dumped me. It was me, Vincent. Who dumped you? With that, he turned and walked away, as if something dirty was behind him. I watched his back and sighed quietly. Vincent had never been dumped in his life. I guess getting dumped by me really annoyed him. But if that thought makes him feel better, I don't mind. Chapter 6. I kept my usual late work hours, and Joaquin stayed later each day. Sometimes he'd offer me a ride. The weather was transitioning from late autumn to early winter. Dry and cold, streetlights illuminated pedestrians wrapped in coats, and the chill seemed to increase the physical distance between everyone, making us subconsciously want to huddle closer. We'd chat about work projects, share what we'd been up to, and I'd complain about the people from a partner company. Occasionally, he'd agree, "Yeah, I think that guy's a complete idiot too," and we'd laugh together. After some time, I could feel Joaquin's liking for me gradually growing. So, on the day of the first snowfall, I decided to up the ante. I requested some leave, and when Joaquin asked why, I hesitated before answering. I need to handle something at home. At this point, most people would stop probing, but Joaquin furrowed his brow. Did something happen with your family? Is there anything I can help with? I smiled awkwardly. No, it's just that my mom wants me to go on a blind date. Joaquin froze. It was rare to see that expression on his face. So I added, I'm already 27. My family's been pressuring me for a while. I've pushed it off before, but this time I can't say no. After a long silence, Joaquin looked down. All right, but you know the company is busy right now. I can only approve. He glanced theatrically at his watch. 2 hours. I think that's enough for a blind date. All right. 1 hour and 59 minutes left. I wasn't lying to Joaquin. I did have a blind date to go to. My recent blind dates hadn't been going well, and my mom was about to lose her mind over it. This time, the guy actually seemed decent, a returnee, working at a big company, 180 centimeters tall, polite, respectful to women, no sexist comments. I got interested and chatted a bit longer with him. Halfway through, my date excused himself to go to the bathroom. I lowered my head to play on my phone, only to feel someone sit down across from me. I was just about to speak when I stopped. It wasn't my date sitting across from me, it was Vincent. He was almost 190 centimeters tall, and while the sofa was a good fit for my date, it seemed cramped for him. His long legs had no place to go, so he leaned as far back into the sofa as he could. Vincent toyed with my date's VW car key left on the table, sneering, "So you dumped me just to come back for this kind of loser?" The smile on my face faded. "Weren't you supposed to be performing with the band? Why are you still here?" Tour schedule changed. Do you think I wanted to stay in this dump of a place? I straightened up. I'd appreciate it if you could respect my date. He's a good person. Please leave now and don't interrupt my date. Vincent's face darkened, his smile disappearing. My date returned, confused by the scene. "Excuse me. Who are you?" Vincent didn't even look at him, his aura heavy. "I'm her boyfriend. If you know what's good for you, get lost." I quickly explained. "No, he's not." But Vincent stood up and grabbed my wrist. "What? Do we need to kiss right here for you to believe it?" By the time I broke free from him, my date was already storming off, his face full of anger. I was furious. "Vincent, what's wrong with you? We're already over." Vincent leaned back on the sofa, the smirk on his face infuriating. "You broke up with me unilaterally." I didn't agree. Dating isn't like marriage, it doesn't need both parties to agree. And you said before, you swore you'd never take back an ex. I've changed my mind. Vincent said it as casually as if deciding what to eat, with no emotional weight at all. "I think you take good care of me. I was comfortable with you, so I don't want to break up anymore." When someone runs out of words, They sometimes laugh. I forced a smile. But I'm not comfortable. I gave you the best years of my life. And you think you're uncomfortable? He raised his voice, drawing attention from the other tables. I wanted to disappear into a hole, leaned forward to cover his mouth. Shut up. Vincent grabbed my hand, and I watched as a malicious smile appeared on his face. Since we broke up, you haven't found a good man, have you, Roxana? Deep down, you know I'm the best man you'll ever meet. And we're great in bed too. Instead of being with those losers, wouldn't it be better if we... His words were cut off as I was pulled away by another hand. I looked up, and there was Joaquin, still in his black suit from work, his brows furrowed. You said you were going on a blind date. Why are you getting into a fight here? Is this guy bothering you? I was completely stunned. The original plan was to make Joaquin jealous. But when he didn't show up, Vincent did. And just when Vincent was causing trouble, Joaquin appeared. I'm her boyfriend. Who are you to interfere? Vincent stood, clearly annoyed, and the two tall men faced off. I'm Roxana's boss, Joaquin said calmly. And as far as I know, Roxana doesn't have a boyfriend. Does she need to report whether she has a boyfriend to you? Vincent glanced back at me, smirking. Oh, I get it now. So this is the new guy you're after. Huh? Roxana, does he know what a deceitful person you are? Are you planning to use the same tactics you used on me on him too? As much as I'd kept my composure, his words made my blood boil. Just as I was about to snap back, Joaquin spoke first. So you're the ex that got dumped. If Roxana dumped you, it means she doesn't like you anymore. Clinging on won't do you any good. Vincent's face turned black. Joaquin then looked at me. Your leave time is up. There's a meeting waiting for you at the office. Let's go. I didn't care about anything else. Frowning as I stared at Vincent. I don't know what's gotten into you. But Vincent, over the years, what do I owe you? Our relationship was consensual. I never forced you into anything. And as I've said before, let's end things peacefully. Don't bother me again. Vincent wanted to say something, but his eyes darkened after my words, and he remained silent. Joaquin grabbed my wrist and led me away. Was that really your ex? Joaquin's arms rested on the steering wheel as we sat in the car, his tone heavy. Didn't you say we needed to get back for a meeting? Was that man your ex? He repeated. Yes. I wiped my face, smiling bitterly. We were together for 3 years. I really liked him before, but he cheated on me over and over. I just couldn't take it anymore. That's why I went home after the breakup. I was so hurt. But lately, being with you, I glanced at Joaquin's expression. Speaking dejectedly, I was starting to feel better. I didn't expect him to come back and harass me again. Joaquin glanced at me. He doesn't deserve you. Don't go soft on him. Cheating once or 100 times, it just shows he can't overcome his animal instincts. Hasn't evolved enough. He's someone with zero self-control, and he doesn't love you. You need someone who's responsible. The corners of my mouth lifted despite myself, and I quickly forced them down, feigning sadness as I said, but there are so few good men like you. Where am I supposed to find one? Joaquin's ears turned slowly red, and he coughed slightly. Well, I guess I'm the only one who's good enough for you. Chapter 7. 3 days later, while I was drinking at the bar, Joaquin messaged me. He asked when I'd be coming back to work. That day, when he said that almost confession, I was genuinely stunned. I hadn't expected him to be so direct, but I didn't say much. I was serious about Joaquin. After getting to know him these past few weeks, he surpassed all my expectations for a partner, so we couldn't just get together in a messy way. Not like with Vincent. A messy beginning always leads to a messy ending. Using heartbreak as an excuse, I took some vacation days to go out with a friend and relax. This bar was the only high-end one in the city, not too noisy, and the songs performed by the band were quite enjoyable. I watched the young men and women dancing while sipping my drink, until, at some point, the music stopped. After a moment, the guitar began again. I found a love for me, darling. Just dive right in and follow my lead. Well, I found a girl, beautiful and sweet. Oh, I never knew you were the someone waiting for me, 'cause we were just kids when we fell in love. not knowing what it was. I will not give you up this time. A magnetic, slightly hoarse voice filled the room, and I paused mid-drink, my eyes widening as I looked towards the stage. Vincent, dressed in a black shirt, sat on a high stool strumming his guitar. A silver chain glinted around his neck. For a moment, the bustling crowd and the dim lights disappeared. I could only see the glimmer in his eyes as we made eye contact. The girls in the audience went wild, whispering excitedly about getting his WeChat later. Everything felt like that first time we met. But this time, I wasn't the one walking towards him. Vincent, holding his guitar, slowly stepped off the stage and smiled at me. Add me on WeChat? The room erupted in cheers, and I, who always thought I'd be as calm as still water, actually felt a ripple in my heart. I looked at Vincent, my expression complicated. What's the point? I wasn't being harsh. I could tell Vincent genuinely liked me. But how much of that was because of who I was? Or was it just because, when we were together, I took care of him meticulously, never causing a scene when he cheated? Always the understanding one? I felt that maybe everything he was doing now was because, deep down, he'd always believed I was the weaker one in our relationship. He was the one in control, and now that the simp had actually dumped him, he couldn't accept it. The crowd slowly dispersed. Vincent gestured to the band, and the music resumed. He sat beside me, leaning back against the booth's sofa, sighing. What you said that day, I thought about it when I got home. And you were right. All these years, you never wronged me. You gave me a lot, and it was me who kept hurting you. I understand why you left me. He seemed hesitant, as if there were things he didn't want to say but felt he had to. His words were awkward, unpolished. So, if I promise to change, to treat you well, and not mess around with other women anymore, can we, perhaps remembering that statement about never taking an ex back? His face flushed, and he seemed to steel himself. Can we get back together? I'm sorry, it was all my fault before. I stared at Vincent, genuinely surprised, thinking he'd been possessed. The same Vincent who always looked down on me was now apologizing and asking to reconcile. Whose idea was this? I knew this wasn't his style. Someone must have put him up to it. Vincent pursed his lips. My friends, after we broke up, they said I'd been too much of a jerk, and if I wanted to win my girl back, I had to let go of my pride. His embarrassment seemed to reach its limit at that point. So, are you getting back with me? I'm way better than those guys from your blind dates. After dating me, you probably find them unbearable. And your boss from the other day, he's just a boring workaholic. We've already been together for 3 years. We're the perfect match. I answered with another question. How did you get the owner to let you pull this stunt? Vincent smirked. I bought the place. I'm the owner now. If you like this bar, it's yours. No. I finished the last sip of my drink and stood up, grabbing my bag. Thanks for the offer. The song was nice, but as for getting back together, that's not happening. The air seemed to freeze. Vincent pressed his lips together, his expression suddenly cold. Why? Vincent had beautiful almond-shaped eyes, which always looked bright and sparkling. Even when he wasn't happy, it was rare to see him looking so cold. Because, I smiled. I never take back my exes. Chapter 8. To get away from Vincent's harassment, I volunteered for a work trip out of town for a week. The project was almost finalized, but during dinner that evening, a high-ranking member of the other company kept giving me unsettling looks. Roxana, how old are you? The middle-aged man with a balding head and a beer belly wouldn't stop asking. I pressed down my annoyance. 27. Still no partner. Huh? Too busy with your career? He kept grinning and leaning closer, wanting to read my palm, but I brushed him off. I'd met plenty of men like this before, thinking young women would endure anything for the sake of a business deal, trying to take advantage. It was frustrating, but this was a big project, so I just had to bear it. My phone rang. It was Joaquin. Are you at dinner? He heard the noisy voices of the men. Why is it so loud? I messaged your boss. If you're done eating, just leave. I didn't want to stay any longer, but the man had drunk too much and started acting out, refusing to let me go. Young women with ambition are great, but But hard work isn't always enough. There are shortcuts in this world. You know, I've got a few more projects. Come to my room later, and we'll discuss them. He handed me his room card, the stench of alcohol making me hold my breath. I pushed the card back. Mr. Zhang, I'm just part of the project team. If you have business to discuss, please contact my boss. Unexpectedly, he flew into a rage, violently pulling me up. A department manager, and you think you're so great? A woman becoming a manager, what? Didn't you sleep your way up? You want to act pure while being a slut? Think I'm not good enough for you? Huh? You arrogant bee. The drunk man was terrifyingly strong. Several male colleagues had to intervene to pull him off me. My heart pounded, and my wrist throbbed with pain. I was almost too shocked to move, leaning against the wall. It wasn't until the deputy manager gestured to me that I snapped out of it and ran out of the room. When I looked down, I realized the phone call was still connected. I picked it up, and Joaquin didn't comfort me. He only said one thing: wait for me. The trip wasn't far, but it was over 3 hours by car. Joaquin was usually very busy, especially with the branch office just getting on track. He was indispensable. I thought he might call to console me or send someone else. I returned to the hotel wanting to sleep, but I couldn't. I didn't turn on the lights, staring at the ceiling in the dark. Honestly, it wasn't a big deal. I was used to this kind of thing. My family couldn't support me during college. I took out student loans, and my living expenses were earned through part-time jobs, early mornings, and late nights. Back then, when my male boss harassed me, I had to endure it. Things were much better now. At least now, I could fight back. Time ticked by, and Joaquin didn't message again. I turned over, smiling bitterly. Even now, I still had foolish expectations. Maybe I did carry my mother's genes, weak, inherited through blood. I hadn't seen much of my dad growing up. All of humanity's vices seemed to manifest in him: gambling, being absent, constantly finding new women. Whenever he did come home, it was only to ask for money. If my mom refused, he'd hit her and me. From the time I could understand things, I'd been urging my mom to divorce him, as had everyone around us. But every time, she'd sob and say she wanted to give me a complete family, refusing to leave him. I didn't understand it at first. How could she think that a complete family, with him treating us like this, was good for me? Later, I realized she was just using me as an excuse. She didn't want to leave him. Every time she caught my dad with another woman, she'd lose it, threatening to take her own life and his, even grabbing kitchen knives and ropes. But whenever he really was about to leave, she'd break down, crying, hugging his legs, begging him to stay. She had been tortured into a Stockholm Syndrome victim. She hated my dad but couldn't leave him. I grew up amidst this endless cycle. I knew from an early age that men couldn't be relied on, that I had to fight for everything I wanted. I wouldn't get back with Vincent because I knew he couldn't change. No matter what he said now, he would never truly settle down, and I wouldn't repeat my mother's tragedy. As for Joaquin, do I really love him? Even I didn't know. Maybe I just liked that he had good qualifications. Seemed decent, definitely better than Vincent. I disguised myself to get close to him, to attract him. But deep down, I knew this affection was false. For once, I found myself lost. Is this really what I want? The next second, the doorbell rang. Wrapped in a blanket, I got out of bed to open the door. Joaquin stood there, in another suit, perfectly tailored. There was no sign of exhaustion from driving through the night. I've informed their company to cancel the cooperation, and the person who insulted you has been fired. I made sure he won't find work in the industry again. You won't see him anymore. His expression was still calm. He didn't hug me or say comforting words, but just having him there seemed to represent a kind of reliability. Joaquin glanced at his watch. It's 3 hours until dawn. Tomorrow's activities are cancelled. You can sleep as long as you want. He paused and added, I'm staying in the room next to yours. If you need anything, you can find me anytime. With that, he was about to leave, as if he'd come all this way just to say those few words. But strangely, my heart calmed down. Just as he turned, I grabbed him, pulling him down by his collar and standing on tiptoes. A cool kiss mixed with a faint mint scent. Joaquin's stunned expression made me laugh. Joaquin. Let's be together. Chapter 9. Being with Joaquin was completely different from being with Vincent. He wasn't someone who was good at sweet talk, he was more of a straightforward guy. But his actions showed his care in every detail. When I faced problems at work, his first response was never to comfort me, but to provide a solution. Often, problems I'd mentioned would be resolved by the next day. He wouldn't always say he missed me, but even if I took the latest flight back at night, he'd be waiting for me at the airport. I experienced a kind of secure happiness I'd never known before. But the happier I was, the more terrified I became. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, beneath my feet was solid rock. But every time I looked back, it turned into an abyss. I started to fear that Joaquin would discover my true self, that everything I showed him was a carefully constructed facade. I was afraid he wouldn't like the real me. After several snowfalls, temperatures dropped rapidly, and with the heavy thoughts in my head and work piling up, I eventually fell ill. After taking leave, I stayed home alone. I hadn't moved in with Joaquin because I feared that being too close would expose the parts of me I didn't want him to see. Half conscious from the fever, I thought I heard the doorbell. I thought I was dreaming until it rang a few more times, and I forced my eyes open. When I shakily opened the door, I found Joaquin standing there. He had a thermos in his left hand and a bag of medicine in his right. It seemed to be snowing outside. There were unmelted snowflakes on his black wool coat, and his long eyelashes, wet, tangled together as he blinked. I heard you were sick. He walked to the dining table and put down the thermos. You shouldn't take medicine on an empty stomach. Have some porridge first. I didn't know which type you liked, so I bought one of each. Before I could react, he reached out to touch my forehead, then pressed his own against mine. Frowning slightly, he sat on the sofa and began taking out each medicine. What symptoms do you have? Is it a cold or flu? I think it's just a cold from the weather. Joaquin took out a box of medicine and carefully read the instructions. I stared at him in a daze. I remembered the first time I saw him, he was just like this, frowning over a report at a meeting. I had been sitting as far from him as possible, with many people between us. He seemed so high above, so distant, so cold. But now, the same person who only looked at projects worth millions was sitting in front of me, studying a small instruction leaflet, alive. Right in front of me, the orange light of the living room shone on Joaquin. His coat draped over the sofa, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his forearms. The light softened his sharp features, giving him an unexpected tenderness. Suddenly, my heart thudded, the echo crashing around in my head. I thought, I'm done for. I walked over and leaned against Joaquin. He wrapped an arm around me, covering me with a throw blanket. What's wrong? Are you feeling worse? I buried my head in his chest, my voice muffled. What do I do? Joaquin? I think I'm falling for you more and more. He raised an eyebrow. You mean you didn't like me before? No, it's just, I couldn't explain the feeling. I'd always feared emotions, feared the sense of losing control. I was afraid I'd end up like my mother. But now, it didn't seem so bad. After taking the medicine, I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. When I woke, I was drenched in sweat, and the congestion in my head seemed to clear. I climbed out of bed, happily going to find Joaquin, wanting to tell him I was feeling better. Joaquin. The next second, I stopped at the study door, locking eyes with Joaquin, whose face had turned expressionless. He was holding the notebook in which I'd written down all my notes about him. He had already read halfway through it. Chapter 10. Joaquin left. He didn't get angry or argue. He didn't say anything, and he didn't look at me again. I stood there in the hallway, wanting to call out to him, but no words came. The cold still lingered, but I hardly felt it anymore. I just felt empty, cold, as if the winter wind had swept into my heart. 2 days later, I recovered and went back to work. I stayed late as usual, went to the break room to grab coffee, but I never ran into him again. Turns out, if he wanted to avoid me, I really couldn't find him. The WeChat messages that used to come in constantly were now completely silent. It was like he'd completely forgotten about me. Sometimes I tried to find humor in it, thinking at least he didn't fire me. He really was the epitome of professionalism. Other times, I couldn't help gritting my teeth. He might as well be petty and take it out on me. It was better than this indifference. But I didn't go looking for him. There was nothing left to say after being caught red-handed. Any explanation would be meaningless. For someone like Joaquin, there were probably plenty of women vying for his attention. I only managed to succeed because of the timing and circumstance. I was no different from anyone else. I went back to my previous routine, going to work alone, coming home alone. Before, it didn't bother me, but after getting used to having someone with me, it felt a bit lonely going back to being single. Vincent, on the other hand, somehow heard about my breakup and started trying to corner me again. After he managed to block me at my front door one more time, I couldn't help but sigh. What do you want? I've already told you. I'm not getting back with you. Vincent leaned against the doorframe, the silver earring on his ear glinting under the light. He raised an eyebrow. You're single now anyway. Why not give it another shot with me? What makes me worse than that guy Joaquin? Look at my face. Money? I've got plenty. Whatever he can give you, I can too. Why do you have to stick with him? I was too tired to argue, replying impatiently. I just like him. What's it to you? Vincent smiled. Sometimes. I hated how even such an ugly expression could still look good on his face. You like him, he said, his voice dripping with cold mockery. But does he like you? He leaned closer, his gaze dark. He likes the version of you that you pretended to be. But I don't. I like you just as you are. He and you aren't even from the same world. Is a love built on pretense even worth it? That last sentence struck me right in the heart. Yeah, my relationship with Joaquin was built on pretense. But my feelings for him weren't fake. I truly liked him. But Vincent was right. What good was that? Joaquin would never like me again. For someone like him, being played by me was probably an unforgivable blemish in his life. Roxana, we're the ones who belong together. Vincent's voice was full of temptation, like a siren's song, trying to pull his chosen prey under the water. I opened my mouth, about to say something, when my phone suddenly buzzed. I glanced down. It was a WeChat message. From Joaquin. Are you free? I'll come pick you up. Let's talk. No, I said, looking back at Vincent. What? He was taken aback. I said I won't get back with you. I looked him straight in the eyes, my tone firm. I don't like you. I wouldn't settle anymore. Chapter 11. After not seeing Joaquin for a few days, I found that nothing about him had changed. He didn't look heartbroken or angry about being deceived. The attendant took his dark gray coat, revealing his black turtleneck. His eyes were downcast, fingers interlocked, resting in front of him. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed silent. Joaquin spoke first. Did you use those same tricks you used on me with others as well? I thought he'd start by asking why I lied to him, but his first question caught me off guard. I was at a loss for words. No, I hadn't. Even with Vincent, I hadn't put this much effort into studying his preferences. Joaquin's expression didn't change, but his brows relaxed a little. I wanted to say I didn't mean to deceive you, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. Instead, I spoke in a low voice. I'm sorry for deceiving you. I understand if you're angry, and if you never want to see me again. I clenched my fists. I can quit. Joaquin paused. I didn't come here today to discuss that. I've thought it over these past few days, and I really do like you. Even after knowing you deceived me, I still like you. Joaquin was always like that. He wasn't good at talking about emotions. When he did, he was blunt, without any pretense. His love, like him, refused to hide. He never concealed his feelings. But a relationship based on lies won't last. I love that you're someone who never backs down from difficulties. That you've always had a clear plan for your life. That you know what you want and are never distracted by the outside world. I love that version of you who shares my values. Not someone who just likes the holy mountain, enjoys skiing in Hokkaido, or prefers Romani Conti. I've always thought that for two people to be together, matching worldviews are more important than shared interests. We're not just lovers, we're lifelong partners. Teammates. We're on the same path, not diverging in different directions. He looked up, his light amber eyes earnest. I really like you, and I hope from now on we don't pretend anymore. I want to be with you forever. I froze. There were so many things I wanted to say, but when I opened my mouth, everything went blank. No one had ever chosen me so resolutely. My experiences growing up left me without any hope for relationships. So I'd habitually used tactics, skills, to gain affection. I thought it was right, that it was fine. In a world where so many people just settled for each other to get by. True love seemed like a myth, like ghosts. Everyone said it was real, but no one had ever seen it. Finding a man I liked to get by with was enough. Who cared about love? I thought there was nothing wrong with me, until someone tore away my facade and told me they loved the real me. He said I didn't need to pretend and that he wanted us to be together forever. He was different from Vincent. Using the same tricks I used on Vincent was an insult to him. In that moment, my emotions turned into a vast emptiness. I could have said so many things to make Joaquin happy, but all I could do was nod blankly. Okay, I promise you. Joaquin smiled. He rarely smiled, but when he did, it was like a frozen lake cracking open to reveal fresh spring water. Then I forgive you. Chapter 12. I started to be with Joaquin for real. I stopped trying to research his likes and dislikes and instead focused on adapting to each other. I no longer watched the movies he liked. And instead, after dinner, we'd snuggle on the couch watching horror movies that I liked. He acted calm on the outside, but that night, he woke up from a nightmare, gasping in fear. He held on to me for a long time without saying anything, and just as I was about to fall asleep again, he whispered, "Dear, let's not watch horror movies anymore." I stopped drinking red wine and took him to street food stalls for baijiu. He couldn't handle it, his face turning bright red, coughing non-stop, and I'd laugh at him. He got angry in the most serious way. And later, I found out he had secretly bought a lot of baijiu at home, trying to improve his drinking capacity. Vincent left. He didn't bother me again. I heard he suddenly decided to go back and take over the family business, getting into intense battles with those illegitimate children. In early March, Joaquin proposed to me. He said he wanted to marry me as soon as possible, that he didn't want to wait. News of our engagement somehow got to Vincent, who insisted on meeting up. After talking to Joaquin, I agreed to meet Vincent on a hillside. Below, the sea waves crashed against the rocks, and seagulls circled in the sky. Vincent leaned against the railing in a black hoodie. He handed me a can of beer, took a sip of his own, and glanced at the 8-carat diamond ring on my hand. His tone sour. "How long have you two been together? And you're already engaged?" I held the beer and smiled. "When you're with the right person, you don't need to wait long." He scoffed, then looked out at the sea in silence before finally speaking. "Roxana, what about me? You just played me, got tired, and tossed me away. Now you're all happy. But what about me? There are plenty of girls who like you. What are you worried about? Are you afraid you won't find anyone?" I playfully patted him when Vincent didn't laugh. I pulled my hand back and said softly, "Vincent, you didn't truly love me. If you had, you wouldn't have cheated on me repeatedly when we were together. You just couldn't handle being dumped first." Vincent didn't say anything. He finished his beer in one go. I handed back the beer. "I hope you'll be happy. I mean it this time." Then I turned and left. I'd walked quite far when Vincent suddenly called out to me, his voice trembling, "But Roxana, I really love you." I didn't stop walking, waving back at him without turning around. Continuing forward, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Joaquin. "I've been working on my drinking. Tonight, let's have a showdown at the barbecue place downstairs." I couldn't help but laugh as I replied, "Fine." First one to pass out is a dog. The sky was wide and the sea endless. The sunlight broke through the clouds. Spring had truly arrived.